there's a 6-year cycle. After the 6 years, the Shemitah. It's the 7th year. So the 7th year, it doesn't belong to you. It's hefker. But the first 6 years of the cycle, you have to separate. You separate your truma. Every year you got to give the kohen, and every year it doesn't. The only right you have. It's a good question. The only right you have is to give it to the kohen of your choice. Okay, really, it belongs to the kohen. Except the Torah said that it gave you the privilege to decide which kohen you want to give your truma to. That's your right. Morning, Miami.
Good morning, Rabbi.
So we're just discussing, the Gemara is talking about Ma'aseh Sheni, the second type. And we said, morning, Adam, welcome back. The second type, we said, you have to give in the first and second year and fourth and fifth year of the cycle, of the 6-year cycle, which is followed by Shemitah. The first and every year you have to give to the Kohen. Every year, that's called Truma. Every year you got to give to the Levi. They are on, so to speak, the payroll. I don't know if it's nice to call it payroll, but they are receiving the tithes. They are receiving every year. There's no year that the Kohen doesn't receive Truma. There's no year that the Levi doesn't receive his ma'aseh. But whether you have to go to Yerushalayim, you, the owner of the field, and to take your produce and take 10% after you separate for the Kohen, you give him his percentage. Let's say around 2% is the average person gives to the Kohen. And then you took 10% of what was left. After you gave 2% to the Kohen, you gave 10% was left, you gave to the Levi. And then you have to take 10% to bring to Yerushalayim, and you eat at Yerushalayim. Your family eats in Yerushalayim. So that's what our discussion is. What is the status of that food of Ma'aseh Sheni that you need to bring to Yerushalayim, and you, your family members, or whoever you want, will eat that produce in Jerusalem? That is the question at hand. What status does that Ma'aseh Sheni has? Is it yours? Or is it really, it doesn't belong to you? Really, because once you separate it, really it's like it belongs to Hashem, it's holy. Except Hashem says, I want you. In contrast to the Kohen, where Hashem says the Kohen eats the Truma, but Hashem says, I want you, the Israel, to go ahead and eat the Truma. And I remember we quoted a beautiful, one of the beautiful Rishonim, maybe I think it was a Seforno, that makes a beautiful comment that this idea that every Jew has to go ahead and give to the Kohen, and every Jew has to give to the Levi from his produce, one of the things that's accomplished as a result of that is that every member of the community is connected with the support of Torah. Because the Kohanim and the Leviim, these were the religious leaders of the community. These were people that were working in the Beit HaMikdash. They were working in other religious services. And the fact that every Jew, you hear that, Adam? That every Jew has to give a certain amount, whatever the percentage is, to the Kohen and to the Levi, what's that? They're invested, exactly. They are a partner. They might not be a full partner. They're not giving 50%. They're not the Succah Zvulun on that level, the 50, that's the equal partnership. But there is a small partner. Everybody is a small partner with the Kohen, with the Levi. So everyone is partnering with the clergy, with the religious clergy, and that gives every Jewish person a merit in the holy work of the clergy, of the Kohanim and the Leviim, and that will be a great merit. The Seforno says for the average Jew to have a great merit to make it big in Olam Haba, in the next world. So I thought that was a beautiful, Jaime, is that a beautiful idea from the Seforno that get every Jew, because not every Jew could afford to be an equal partner with the Succah Zvulun. Not every Jew is maybe able to set up a Succah Zvulun deal, but every Jew to give a small percentage, that every Jew should have that ability to be there. So now getting back to the story is this Ma'aseh Sheni that it's not for the Kohen, it's not for the Levi. Hashem wants you, the Yisrael, to go down to Jerusalem. You, the Yisrael, as a Sefer Chinuch, he wants you, the Yisrael, good morning, Mari, that you should be inspired. You should go to the Holy Land. You should be in holy places. And therefore, Hashem says, what is it? I think Rabbi Elbaz was, oh, you have your seat, Rabbi Elbaz. Very good. Oh, Rabbi Samach, I'm sorry. Okay. So therefore, Hashem wants every Jew to go to the holy city of Jerusalem. Either yourself, your children, you should go to the holy city of. And Adam, you can sit back in your seat. It looks like Rabbi Samach is sitting somewhere else. That every Jew should be in the holy city. But now the question is, once you separated those ties, and those ties have halachot, they can't become. Even though you eat it, but you have to eat it in the state of purity. It can't become contaminated. There are certain laws, but who officially is the owner of that Ma'aseh Sheni that you're eating in Jerusalem? Do you own it? You're eating it. Does that mean you own it? Well, you don't own it. Maybe it belongs to Hashem. And Hashem says, I want you to eat it there. You're a guest at Hashem's table. That's the question of the Ma'aseh Sheni. And there will be great ramifications. Could you take your Ma'aseh Sheni and get married with it and give it to a woman you want to betroth her with? You have to give her something that belongs to you. If it belongs to you, you can give it to her and say, Hariyat Mugudeshetli, you're married to me with this Ma'aseh Sheni. She takes it, everything is good. But if it doesn't belong to you, just you have rights to eat it, you can't betroth a woman with something that belongs to holy, that belongs to Hashem, even if you have a right to eat it. So that is the discussion in the Gemara between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim. The Ma'aseh Sheni, who does the Ma'aseh? Who is this official owner? We know who gets to it. We want to identify who's the owner of the Ma'aseh Sheni. That's the issue, and there's great ramifications as a result of that. And the Gemara brought 3 cases where this question, this dispute, would have great ramifications, besides betrothing a woman. The Gemara says by etrog, can I fulfill my mitzvah with an etrog that's Ma'aseh Sheni? I had a tree, I had an etrog tree in my backyard. I don't have one. I had an etrog tree in my backyard, and I gave truma to the Kohen from it. I gave to the Levi, and now I take off Ma'aseh Sheni, and I got to eat it in Jerusalem. Can I go ahead on the holiday of Sukkot and take this Ma'aseh Sheni etrog and say the bracha on this etrog? So what's the issue? Welcome back, Adam. What's the issue? The issue is the Torah says lachem, but talks about the etrog. It says yours. If it's Ma'aseh Sheni, if Ma'aseh Sheni belongs to you, so then you could use it for the mitzvah of etrog. But if the Ma'aseh Sheni does not belong to you, you can't use it. That's what the Gemara wants. That's what Rav Asi said. You can't. You won't be able to use it for the holiday. Another thing, the Torah says about the mitzvah of challah. When you have a certain amount of dough, the ladies usually, that's the mitzvah that the ladies are mostly involved with. Of course, if there's no man is making his own dough, he has to also take off challah. Just generally, that's the ladies that are involved in that mitzvah. That you have to, if you make a certain amount of flour, you have to take off dough. You have to separate dough and give it to the Kohen. That's in the time of, now we don't give it to the Kohen. We separate a certain amount, you burn it, you get rid of it. But that, the Torah also says it should be your dough. You have to take off from your dough. So if it belongs to Hashem, it doesn't belong to you, and you're using that dough you're using that flour from Ma'aseh Sheni, you would not have to separate any challah. It's not yours if it doesn't belong to you. If you say it belongs to you, the Ma'aseh Sheni, so then you have to separate. So that would be another ramification. And the Gemara said a third case will be ramifications if by matzah. The Gemara says there's an opinion in the Gemara here that matzah has to be yours in order for you to fulfill the mitzvah. Now, I could eat in your house, and you could, I could be a guest in your house, and I could fill my mitzvah of matzah. But the way the Gemara presents it over here, if the matzah belongs to Hashem, if the matzah of Ma'aseh Sheni belongs to Hashem, I eat it. Hashem says I have a right to eat it, but it doesn't belong to me. I cannot fulfill my mitzvah of matzah the night of Pesach, where the Torah says you have to eat matzah at the Seder. I cannot fulfill my mitzvah with matzah that belongs to Hashem. That's not mine. That is the opinion of the first opinion of Rav Meir, according to Rav Ashi, but the Chacham hold Ma'aseh Sheni belongs to you. If it belongs to you, you have a right to fulfill the mitzvah of matzah at the Seder with the Ma'aseh Sheni matzah. Those were the three cases. And Rav Asi is the one who stated in all three cases, this would be the ramifications of between Rav Meir and the Chachamim. This is what will come out. These will be the three that he presented three cases, and he said based on their old dispute. By the way, this is a kosher dispute. Some disputes are not kosher. Their old dispute of how do you look at Ma'aseh Sheni, would the ramifications of that would be in all of these three cases. That's what Rav Asi presented to us. And today the Gemara opens up on 35b1, trying to support Rav Asi's opinion. You see, the only thing there's something called a given, the fact that was given, and then there's something that was not given, that the rabbi, his own contribution, his own, what he added to the story. What was given is, we know if you take Ma'aseh Sheni money, not money, or Ma'aseh Sheni money, or produce, and you betroth a woman with that Ma'aseh Sheni, the Rav Meir says it's no good, and the Chacham say it is good. That's what we do know. We do know on record, when it comes to marriage, there's a dispute if you could betroth a woman with Ma'aseh Sheni. Now Rav Ashi took it to many other ramifications. He applied this dispute. He says the same way they're arguing here, they're going to argue in all three other cases as well. The question is his comparison a good comparison? Meaning the fact that that we found a precedent that they argue in this case of marriage, does that necessarily mean that all other similar cases will be the same law? Well, perhaps there is a distinction between some of the other cases. Rav Asi made no distinction. We have a lawyer at the class. Adam could tell us about all the distinctions in law, right? We have Rav Asi says there's no distinction in all three cases. The Gemara wants to prove his point, that his assertion that the difference of opinions will have ramifications in those three cases. The Gemara wants to prove that he's correct. Now let's see how the Gemara presents it, and we'll see if the Gemara accepts the presentation. Morning, Max. So the Gemara says like this: Lema Messiah. Let us say that the following Braita is a support of Rav Asi's chidush, Rav Asi's contribution, so to speak, of connecting the dots, applying the dispute by marriage to have ramifications in three other cases. So the Gemara says, let us show that the following supports his idea. When a later rabbi says something, we like to see if it's supported. Meaning you're coming up with something, maybe there is a distinction, right? Mr. Haber used to like to say a lot, case, law, reason, right? If a case, the fact that if something's a different case doesn't mean everything that's similar, the fact it's a similar case has the same halacha. So let's see what we say. The Gemara says, Lema Messiah. Let's say the following is support. Isa shel Ma'aseh Sheni. If you have dough that was from the wheat that was Ma'aseh Sheni that you had to bring to Yerushalayim and eat in Yerushalayim, you the owner. Petura min achala. Rav Meir goes on record and he says, dough of Ma'aseh Sheni, you do not need to separate a piece for the Kohen. Even though it is a general rule, the Torah says, from your dough you give to the Kohen. But Rav Meir says, but this is not my dough. This is Ma'aseh Sheni. I eat it in Yerushalayim, but it belongs to Hashem. It doesn't belong to me. Hashem is very nice to me. He gives me the right to eat it, but it doesn't belong to me. Therefore, if it's not mine, and the Torah made a specific requirement when it comes to challah, that the responsibility to take off challah is on my challah. But if it's not mine, it belongs to Hashem. I don't have to take off my challah. I don't have to separate it to give to the Kohen. The Chachamim say that this dough of my sasheni from my crop that I separated 10%, I brought to Yerushalayim. Remember, the Torah says if it's too heavy for you to carry to Jerusalem, you redeem the value onto coins, and you take the coins to Jerusalem. And if you redeem it onto coins, then the food you could eat outside of Jerusalem, and take the coins and bring to Yerushalayim. And you buy produce in Yerushalayim with the coins. A very user-friendly way to go about it, right? You have to pay a service charge. You have to add a fifth for the fact that you redeemed it. Okay, so the Chacham say that my sasheni that you eat in Jerusalem is chayav b'chala. You have to separate chala. So the Gemara, now obviously it would seem because the Chacham view my sasheni this type that it belongs to you. You eat in Yerushalayim. Doesn't belong to. It's not that it's consecrated. It doesn't have a status of consecrated that it belongs to Hashem. Therefore you have to take off chala. So the Gemara says, "Lema Messiah." How could you say, let us say this is a support? If you say this maybe supports that, would seem to indicate that it's up for discussion. Let's say the following is a support. I'm not saying clearly it is a support. I am suggesting, right? If I say, Mr. Haber, let us say this is a support to that ruling. That means, am I saying I'm definite or I'm suggesting? How would you understand the suggesting? The Gemara shoots back. What do you mean? Maybe it's a support. It's clear. It's not a suggestion. It's black and white, so to speak. You don't call it let us suggest that it's supportive. It's supportive. It's not a suggestion. Max, you hear the question? Adam, you hear the Gemara's question? You don't call it let us say it's supportive. The Gemara should say, I have a support. I found a proof to your opinion. Don't say the language of lema. Let us say. It's nice to talk with humility, and you should always talk with him. Let us say. But here it's not a question of humility. It's clear that it's a perfect match. It's exactly what you said. So to that the Gemara says, that's the Gemara's question. Lema Messiah. He. It's exactly what you said. So the Gemara says, Ella midbaha pligi v'hanami pligi. Meaning, remember, Rabotai, there are 3 cases that Rav Asi applied this ruling, this argument of Rav Meir and the Chachamim. He applied it to etrog, he applied it to chala, and he applied it to matzah. Okay? We have a proof to one of his cases. We have a proof to the case of chala that he's correct, of applying the law of Ma'aseh Sheni, that whether it's yours or not yours, to the law of chala. The chala would be the same argument they had regarding betrothing a woman, would be the same argument regarding whether you be obligated to take off chala. But when the Gemara says lema, let us say, the Gemara means to say the fact that we found a support, we found clearly a support for chala. The chala would have the same argument. Do we say therefore? Similarly, there'll be the same. We could suggest that the same way he was right, that applies to chala, it would also apply to matzah. It also would apply to etrog. Meaning, because we found one of the 3, we found clearly he's correct. So would we say that if he's correct in that one, he's correct in the other 2 as well? Or do we say perhaps there's something unique? Good morning, Michael. Good to see you, Mr. Silverman. Welcome back. If you think Ma'aseh Sheni is exempt from chala, that means it shows that you don't own it. So if you don't own it, so therefore it should be the same law regarding etrog and regarding matzah, right? That's what the Gemara for etrog can't use it for matzah. That's what the Gemara is suggesting. But Michael, we are on 35b. 1. 35b.
Rabbi, you have to tell him we missed him, like you tell me.
Yes, you're correct. Michael, we missed you. Okay. So the Gemara says like this. Old Dilma, the Gemara, the fact that they argue by chala would also mean they argue regarding by matzah, by etrog. Michael, just to bring you up to date, we brought a machloket, there's a famous dispute between the Chachamim and Rameya. What status is Ma'aseh Sheni? Is Ma'aseh Sheni that you separate 10% and you bring to Jerusalem in the first and second year of the Shemitah of the 6-year cycle, and the fourth and the fifth year you take Ma'aseh Sheni. The third and the sixth year you do not take Ma'aseh Sheni. The third and the sixth year you take 10% of your produce and you give it to the poor people. That's what you do. The third and the
it's called Maaseh Ani.
Maaseh Ani, exactly, to the poor people. But the first and second and fourth and fifth year, you go ahead and you take the Maaseh Sheni and you bring it to Yerushalayim. Who owns that Maaseh Sheni? Is it yours, the owner? That's the Chachamim. They say it belongs to you. You could betroth a woman with that Maaseh Sheni. You just have to eat it in Yerushalayim. Or do we say it really belongs to Hashem, but Hashem says, you eat it, you keep it. You eat it, you're a guest at my table. And the Gemara said there are many ramifications for this dispute. That's what Ravasi said. And the Gemara proved that the same argument would apply to challah. The Torah says by challah, reishit arisotechem. You have to give from your dough. You have from your dough when you're making challah, when you're making bread, your dough you have to take off challah. You take off a certain piece and you give it to the Kohen. So if you're using dough of Ma'aseh Sheni dough, do you have to take off challah and give it to the Kohen? Is it yours or not? If you say it's yours, you have to give it to the Kohen. If you say it's not yours, you don't have to give it to the Kohen. And the Gemara proved that by Ma'aseh Sheni dough, it's the same dispute. Chacham say it belongs to you, and Rameya says it doesn't belong to you. So the Gemara says, the same way they argue by the dough of by challah, they would also argue by etrog, and they would argue by matzah. Or Dilma, the Gemara says maybe no proof for the other two cases of Ravasi. Shiny Isa, maybe dough is different. Maybe dough, we have a higher level of requirement. Why? The Amakrav arisotechem trei zimni. The pasuk says twice that it has to be your dough. By emphasizing that it has to be your dough, maybe that's where Rameya would hold that if it's Ma'aseh Sheni and it's Ma'aseh Sheni dough, you will not have to separate, because the Torah emphasizes and reiterates the idea that it has to be yours. It emphasizes it twice. However, but when you have something else and the Torah says lachem, let's say by etrog, Torah says, I want you to take something that belongs to you. And let's say it's Ma'aseh Sheni, and Rameya says it doesn't belong to you. Meaning it belongs to Hashem. But the fact that you have a right to eat it, maybe that's enough that it reaches the bar that you could say it's yours. Maybe yours doesn't only mean what's yours officially, what's called yours. Is something yours only if monetarily on paper you have the ownership, or is something yours? Could we say it's could we be broad on the terminology of yours by the fact that you have the right, you are in control of eating this etrog. The Ma'aseh Sheni, you're the person who eats the Ma'aseh Sheni. So even that, maybe that's enough that it's called yours. The fact that you have such a right, sometimes having certain rights makes something yours. Even you could classify it, it's yours. You know what? Even though you don't own it. For example, maybe we could give a good example. Let's say, morning, good to see you. Let's say someone's a gabbai of a shul, right? Or someone blows the shofar every year. Do you own it? You didn't pay for it. You don't own it. But the fact that you have the chazakah, great to see you. Welcome back. The fact that you have the chazakah every year of blowing the shofar in the shul, it's like you own it. Really, we can't take it away from you. You can't really take away someone's Someone, you want to just, hey, I want to blow shofar instead of that guy. You can't do that. What do you mean? He's been blowing the shofar for the last certain amount of years. You can't just take away that. But now, does the other guy really own it? He didn't pay anything for it. He didn't pay for the rights. But the fact that that's his, that he's been doing it for all this time. He's been the one who's blowing. So in a certain sense, it's called his, even though he didn't pay for it, right? I'm just giving that as an example. So too the Gemara is saying maybe this is called yours because you have the right to eat it. You, the Yisrael, the non-Kohen, the non-Levi is eating the Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim. So maybe that's called yours. What's called yours? Is this mine? Maybe that's enough called mine because I'm the one who's eating it. So that's what the Gemara is saying. There's no proof. The Gemara is saying that's what we're saying. Do we have a proof that even by etrog, when it says lachem, it only says lachem once. It doesn't emphasize it like by challah. By challah, by separating from your dough to give some of your dough to the Kohen, the Torah repeated itself, emphasizing that it needs to be yours. So by repeating it, it says, emphasizing it has to be the real yours, the real McCoy that's called yours, that you actually have financial ownership in it. But however, when it comes to etrog, or when it comes to matzah, well, the Torah didn't re-emphasize this your business, that it has to be yours. It might have said it, we might have indicated it once, but that once, maybe this fulfilled the fact that I have a right to eat that Ma'aser Sheni, even though technically on paper, who's the owner? The owner is someone else, but I have a right to eat it. Maybe that's enough that it's called mine. And therefore, we can't prove that Rameir would say, I can't use an etrog of Ma'aser Sheni. You cannot fulfill the mitzvah of etrog because it's not enough lachem. It's not yours. Maybe the fact that I can eat this etrog in Yerushalayim, maybe you hear that, Michael? Maybe that's enough to be called mine, and maybe I could maybe I could use it for the mitzvah of etrog.
Notes 2 and 3. Notes 2 and 3 explain it like the rabbi, like you just said.
I'm happy that I'm in good company.
Yeah, got Rashi. You're good. Yeah.
Yeah, that Rashi is the key. That Rashi, I'm gonna learn. We'll learn inside the Rashi that Michael was alluding to. If everybody wants to look at that Rashi, exactly. I was looking at that Rashi, Michael. How did you know? Look at that Rashi. The Rashi is about 5 lines from the top of the page. The headline. These are the headlines we're supposed to be looking for, guys. Rabotai. People look for the wrong headlines. These are the real headlines we're supposed to be following. Al Dilma Shiny Isa. The headline of the Rashi is Shiny Isa. You have it, Max? It's in the small lines. It's like the second of the small line. 5 lines around from the top of the whole page. 5, 6 lines. Or maybe dough is different. Baha. In that case, Rashi, who did come around Meir Batura? That's where Meir says it's exempt from challah. The ksiv miuta yitera has an extra exclusion. It excludes something that's not yours. It's written twice. Of a bachad miuta. But if the Torah only excludes once, if it only says it has to be yours, excluding something that's not yours, lo nafkalan, we can't learn from there. Why? The kiva de mishtari lachila, the fact that you have a right to eat it, afagav the led beitin mamon, even though you don't have any financial ownership in it, maybe it's called lachem kavinah. Maybe it's still called yours. Okay, now let's continue in the Gemara. Yes, Adam.
Right?
Yes.
And he's coming to say actually the 3 cases are not identical because you have one of them where you need lachem, you need double ownership.
Right.
That's halal.
Right. Maybe by halal.
We were wrong the whole time when we thought the 3 are identical.
No, that's what the Gemara is saying. Rav Asi compared all 3. But the Gemara is suggesting
Maybe he was wrong.
maybe we can't prove it. The Gemara is only saying we can't prove it.
We thought there was 2 levels.
Right.
Either
It's yours or not yours.
yours or not. He's like, actually, there's a 3rd level. There's yours,
Even
not
though
yours, the super yours.
Right.
The only applies.
Right. Okay. And if a challah doesn't have, and you didn't meet that requirement, because you have to have ownership, financial ownership.
And rule on all three.
Exactly.
I mean, rule on two.
But you can rule on one. You could rule that we could show that when it comes to challah, for sure challah, you will not be able to fulfill your mitzvah. You will not be obligated according to Rav Meir, because it's not, because the Torah is emphasizing yours. That means
Challah is not
only
yours.
You have to have
Challah is not
ownership.
yours. Yeah, challah
Right.
is not yours. It's the
Right.
Kohen. It's Hashem.
Again, the question is the dough. The dough of the Ma'aseh Sheni. What is the dough of Ma'aseh Sheni your dough or not your dough? So the Chacham say the dough of Ma'aseh Sheni is your dough. Therefore, you have to separate challah to give to the Kohen. But Rameir says the dough of Ma'aseh Sheni is not you. You have no ownership in it. And the Torah says it's not. You have to have ownership in the dough for you to be obligated to separate from that dough.
So we hold that Maaseh Sheni,
It is yours.
Maaseh Sheni dough, we don't own. It's not ours.
No, according to the Chacham, you do own it, Michael. Ma'aseh Sheni, the Chacham say you take to Jerusalem, you the owner owns it, you eat in Yerushalayim, and because you own it, you have to separate and give from that it's your dough.
Your
yes,
challah. You have to give challah from it. Got it. You have to give Maaseh from it. Another Maaseh.
Yeah, you gave the Maaseh. It is Ma'aseh Sheni.
Ken, you got to give another challah.
You have to take off challah.
Ken.
So Truma, the Rameir only went on, right? He said you don't own it. In all three services, he said you will not own it. But the question is the fact that you do not own something, does that make it that it's not yours? Or maybe if you have certain rights in something, maybe that the rights created that it makes it yours in a certain sense. Like the mashal of the gabai of the shul. It belongs the guy who blows the shofar. It's his. It's his. It belongs to him. Don't take away his job of blowing the shofar. What do you mean it's his? He didn't pay for it. It's his. He's the one who has a chazakah in blowing the shofar. It's his. There's a lot of halachot, by the way, about this. People taking it. There's a great question in halacha. Listen to this question, everybody. You like this question. Rosh Hashanah comes out on Shabbat. And let's say the shul we have two people generally that blow the shofar. Mr. Haber blows the shofar the first day of Rosh Hashanah, and Adam generally blows the shofar the second day of Rosh Hashanah. What do we do if Rosh Hashanah comes out on Shabbat? The first day of Rosh Hashanah comes out on Shabbat. Do we say Mr. Haber, who generally blows the shofar on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, he doesn't blow, he can't blow, and the second day, Adam, who generally blows the second day, Adam gets the job for the second day. But do we say that since Mr. Haber generally blows the shofar the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the first day of Rosh Hashanah comes on a Shabbat, he gets to blow the second day, and Adam doesn't blow? Jaime, how do you like that question? That a great question? You like it, right? It's the Aruch HaShulchan discusses this question. Max, you like the question? Beautiful question. It's a halacha question. We got to know whose right is it. Mr. Haber, do you get it? Because you're usually the first. You always get the first day because you are very special. Adam's also very special. But you always get the first day. You would tap the first day. So it means that you always have that right. You always get that first right. So if you can't blow because the first day comes out on Shabbat, you get the second day. But do we say no? You get your day is the first day. Adam's day is the second day. So if Rosh Hashanah comes on a Shabbat, you don't get it. Adam gets it. But meaning there are these questions because you have certain rights because you do it on a regular basis. It's yours in a certain sense, and we have to figure out what the halacha in that particular case. We got to look back at the Aruch HaShulchan. I remember seeing it this year, and I really loved the question.
So if everyone has always had their day over enough years, it's easy.
Okay. But let's say there's only one more. Okay, good. Maybe that could play a role in how the rabbis would paskin.
There's other factors.
But we have to see the calendar a little. We have to see the calendar, how the calendar works.
Right.
Right. It says lo adu rosh. There's certain things that lo adu the first day of Rosh Hashanah can't come out. Let's say on a Sunday. We have to see these. The calendar would work. It does come on Shabbat. So let's see the Gemara. I want to do one more piece of Gemara a little bit, Rabotai. Shel truma tmei psula. we said if you take truma tmeya, truma that became contaminated, you gave it to the kohen, and then somehow it got contaminated. So you can't eat truma that's contaminated. You could burn it, you can use it as fuel, but you can't eat it. So, and the Mishnah says you cannot fulfill your mitzvah of truma. Sorry, you can't fulfill your mitzvah of etrog with truma. You have an etrog that was truma, and you can't fulfill your mitzvah of etrog if this etrog of truma, you're a kohen. Your name is Mr. Cohen. Hello, Mr. Cohen. And now you have truma that's etrog that's contaminated. You can't use it for the mitzvah at all. And if you try to use it, you don't get credit. You got to use something. You got to do it over again. So the Gemara says, why? So the Gemara says, even though technically you have certain rights to it, you could use it as fuel, but we established before, you have to be something you have a right to eat. And since you cannot eat the truma, the etrog that became contaminated, that was truma, can't be eaten. So therefore, you cannot fulfill your mitzvah of etrog with such an etrog. The Gemara says, there's no allowance of, you have no right to eat it. If you have no right to eat it, it's not called lachem. It's not called yours if you can't eat it. So therefore, you cannot fulfill your mitzvah. Mr. Cohen cannot use the truma, the etrog that became contaminated. He cannot use it for the mitzvah. The Gemara says, "V'shel truma tahora lo yito." Let's say it's truma tahora. The Cohen, Mr. Cohen, has truma that's not contaminated. It's pure. Yet the Mishnah said he still shouldn't use it for the mitzvah. If he went ahead and he did it, he gets credit. But he shouldn't do it. L'chatchila, we tell Mr. Cohen, don't use your truma for etrog. Why not? The Gemara says, interesting ideas. One idea is the Gemara says, as you know, in order for a food to have the ability to receive contamination, it had to come in contact with a certain liquid. There's like 7 different liquids, like milk or water, certain things that if food comes in contact with, only subsequently for it becoming in contact with the water, let's say, would the food be able to become contaminated. If it never comes in contact with water and someone who is contaminated touches it, will not make it contaminated. That's a law in Tumah and contamination. Now we know the lulav, a lot in the old days, they would keep the lulav fresh by putting it back into the water. Had a bucket of water, keep the lulav nice and fresh. Maybe there are people today that do that today also, putting the lulav back into the water. And you know what will happen? You put the lulav back in the water so your hands are wet. And when your hands are wet from the lulav, it's going to touch the etrog, that wet hand. And therefore, what's going to happen? The etrog now, once the etrog gets touched with water, now it can receive contamination. And we want to make a fence. We don't want you to get close to having your truma contaminated. So therefore, in order to make sure we won't get close to contamination, we say don't use it for etrog. Because if you use it for etrog, then it's gonna come in contact with water most likely, and then you're one step closer for the truma to become contaminated. And we want to stay away from bringing it close. And we'll see tomorrow more details. I want to wish everyone a great day, and we welcome back Michael. Thank you so much, Michael, for being here.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a great day. Have a great day.
Love you, Michael.
Everybody.
Love you, brother. Thanks.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Jaime. All the best, everybody.
Have the best day.
Rabbi, I'm
Yes.
looking at that siman in Mishnah Berurah. It looks like it's siman Taf Kuf Peh, that area.
What are you looking up, Michael?
I'm looking up that what you're talking about. What happens if there's 2 people that have to blow the shofar that usually blow? It talks
Very
about
good,
splitting.
very good. He's looking it up. Okay, very good. I know the Aruch HaShulchan talks about it also. I know for sure the Aruch HaShulchan talks about it. So we could do some homework. You look at the Mishnah Berurah, look at the Aruch HaShulchan. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll share some notes with each other.
You got it, Rabbi. Looking
Okay,
for Chodesh Tov. Chodesh Tov.
Chodesh Tov, yes, Chodesh Tov. All
Okay.
the best.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care, Jaime.
Bye-bye, Rabbi.
Bye-bye.